Trump's emergency powers, how judges are responding, analysis. In a nation rife with challenges, President Trump perceives crises at every turn, raising significant questions for the judiciary. In the current political climate, President Trump has identified a series of emergencies throughout the United States, which has led to a multitude of legal dilemmas for federal courts. Since the commencement of his second term, he has issued numerous presidential documents asserting that the country is facing urgent situations that necessitate extraordinary measures. These actions allow him to bypass the usual governmental procedures, opting instead for unilateral decisions rather than navigating the often unpredictable process of passing legislation through Congress. This approach not only highlights his administration's strategy, but also raises critical discussions about the balance of power in government. But here's where it gets controversial. Is it appropriate for a president to declare emergencies so frequently? And what implications does this have for democracy? As we delve deeper into this topic, it's essential to consider the potential consequences of such unilateral actions. Are we witnessing a shift in how power is exercised in the U.S.? And this is the part most people miss. The ramifications of these declarations could redefine the relationship between the executive branch and the judiciary. What do you think? Should there be limits on the president's ability to declare emergencies? Join the conversation and share your thoughts. Trump's tariff troubles. 5 moves if courts rule against him. News, politics. Trump's 5 options if courts rule sweeping tariffs unlawful. In a move that could redefine U.S. trade policy for nearly a century, President Donald Trump has leveraged unprecedented emergency powers to implement the most aggressive tariff regime in American history. This strategy, outlined in a Bloomberg explainer, https www.bloomberg.com/explainers, Trump S. Tariffs Explained, SRND, PHX Explainers, hinges on invoking the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA, to justify retaliatory import taxes. However, 2 federal courts have now ruled against this approach, citing violations of legal procedures. The court's decisions, which were issued in May, https www.bloomberg.com/news articles/2025-0528, Trump's global tariffs blocked by U.S. trade court, have sparked fierce debate over the limits of executive authority and the fairness of trade practices. The IEEPA, designed to protect the economy during emergencies, was never intended to authorize broad, reciprocal duties targeting global trade partners. Yet Trump's administration argues that the law's provisions allow for such measures under national security concerns. The courts, however, have found the administration's interpretation of the law to be legally flawed, emphasizing that the IEEPA requires strict adherence to procedural safeguards. This clash underscores a critical tension between executive discretion and judicial oversight in shaping trade policies. The Trump administration has already begun appealing both rulings, with oral arguments set for July 31st, https://www.bloomberg.com/news/newsletters/trade war latest court challenges to Trump's tariffs. This legal battle raises questions about the balance of power between branches of government and the role of courts in constraining executive actions. As the case moves forward, stakeholders will likely grapple with whether the U.S. can maintain its trade advantages while upholding constitutional principles. But here's where it gets controversial. The interpretation of the IEEPA scope remains a central point of contention. Some argue that the court's rulings are a necessary check on executive overreach, while others contend that the administration's use of emergency powers is a legitimate defense against unfair trade practices. In the end, the outcome of this legal showdown will shape not only U.S. trade policy, but also the broader discourse on how governments balance economic interests with legal accountability.